Welcome to Musings and Modalities. I'm your host, Tristen Stawicki. Think of me as your pragmatic shaman bestie. Join in with other high-vibe, lovely people as I unravel spiritual ideas to help create change and growth in your life. I cover a variety of spiritual topics, sharing knowledge to meet you wherever you are in your journey. As a shaman, astrologer, and human design reader, I help you understand how to make informed decisions and incorporate different modalities using discernment and your own intuition. Today, you will gain powerful shamanic healing tools you can use to incorporate spiritual practices in non-traditional ways. Whether you're just beginning or need a knowledgeable best friend with the next phase of your journey, I'm here to help. Stay tuned. Musings and Modalities starts now. Hey everyone, and welcome to Musings and Modalities. I'm Tristen Stawicki, and I'm so excited for today's episode, Defensible Decisions, How to Build Sustainable Performance with Data and AI with special guest Jen McCorkle. With over 25 years in analytics, AI, and executive leadership, Jen has advised organizations ranging from high-growth companies to Fortune 100 enterprises. Her background gives a rare vantage point at the intersection of data and human judgment and organizational dynamics. She has uncovered tens of millions in hidden revenue and guided leadership teams through high-stakes decisions where clarity mattered more than speed. That's so important. Jen leads decision forensics engagements through facilitated experiences, does investigative consulting, and has systems that support disciplined decision practice. She's also the author of upcoming books, Defensible Decisions, When the Fog Descends, and Think Deeper, A Better Way to Think Before You Decide, which is an ebook that explores decision-making through both analytical and human lenses. Her work is grounded in one belief that sustainable performance is built on the quality of decisions, not the volume of data. Jen, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Tristan. I'm so glad to be here with you today.
Oh, I'm so excited. In our conversations, we are both data geeks, right? And we love kind of sharing our experiences where we both, have seen where companies can kind of go wrong in their decision making, their approach to data. I've worked at, startups, large legacy corporations, and no matter the company size or industry, really making decisions effectively is such a challenge. And
Mhm.
so I'd really love to hear more about your background for our audience and your decision to focus on decision making.
Yeah, thank you. So, as you mentioned, this is actually 30 years, my anniversary. I started with IBM in 1996. So, it's been 30 years since I entered the corporate world. And I have been kind of in every single job you can think of that was related to data analytics and data science. I've done architecture, and data engineering. I've built warehouses. I've created predictive algorithms. I've done visualizations and dashboards. And so I love the data. And I find myself in my personal life using so much data and going after data. So I'm really happy that my superpower here aligned with a career that I can love.
Absolutely.
And what I was noticing, and to your question about how I decided to go into this decision making, what I was noticing in most of the jobs that I had and clients that I've worked with is when we start looking for why something didn't work the way that they wanted it to work. Sometimes it's because they didn't have the right information. Sometimes they didn't have the right team. Sometimes they didn't, it wasn't the right timing and the right opportunity. And even though all of that was happening, I was seeing a common thread, and that was critical thinking and decision-making skills. And it's been a gap since the 90s, and it's amazing that it's still a gap today.
It is. Yeah, I feel like we have so much improvements that we've made across industries in so many places. And the fact that, when I'm working and advising companies and the way they approach data, the way that they try to manipulate it across departments is both fascinating and horrifying, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Well, I think it might have been Robert Coates. I can't remember. But he had a quote from the 60s that said, if you torture data long enough, it will tell you anything. And that's very, very true. You can take a statistic and just spin it a different way, or you can take, cherry pick information and change your filters, and the information is still correct. It's just presented through a very different lens.
Mm-hmm. And when you think about kind of the decision advantage system, how does it kind of help organizations? How does it speak to this problem?
Another quote I like is, if it gets measured, it gets managed.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people don't consider the process of decision making. So we have a strategy, we make a decision to go after a market or add a product or change something in ops, and then we look to see, did that decision work? And we never look at the relationship between strategy, decision, outcome, and the way that entire process worked together. How much of your decisions are being made because you have good, solid evidentiary data? So you've got reports and dashboards, everybody's speaking the same language, everybody understands the same data, and the data is the right data and information for the decision you're making. How much of your decisions are made from what I call intuition? Intuition not only being what your gut kind of tells you, but there's an experience layer as well. If you've been in business for a while, sometimes you'll see a report and a report will give you information, it's correct information, but your experience tells you something different. And so how much of those decisions are made from gut? And then the next thing that we have to think about is AI. How much of your decisions are being made from inputs from generative AI or AI systems? And then how do you know the right recipe and combination of those three elements when it comes to making decisions? And that's what the decision advantage is all about, is the systems and the thinking tools that help you identify that magic formula for decision making in your organization.
No, that's so beautiful and so needed because I know you recently shared with me the article that came out where, numbers were shared publicly that were incorrect, right? And were
Mhm.
not a reflective of kind of the data and really the decision making of a company. So if you want to talk about that a little bit more, because I think it's so relevant to our topic right now.
Yeah, and it's in the Think Deeper book that's coming out on Amazon here in a couple of days. It's an example that I use in there. I work with a subscription-based company, and they were wanting to go make this announcement about how many people were subscribing to their services. And they asked the finance team, how many do we have? And they're like, 1 million. We've got 1 million. Yay, that was a huge milestone, right? And then somebody said, I don't think that's right. And I was called in as I started looking at the information. I was thinking there weren't even 500,000 people in the database. How could we have said we have 1 million people? Well, the financial system was tracking licenses and subscriptions as a specific license, not knowing or not in their system, it didn't matter. A license is a license, it's a transaction. And that's what they looked through the lens of. But they didn't think about the fact that a person could have multiple subscriptions. You could subscribe to multiple things inside of their ecosystem. So being able to say we've got 1 million people was actually incorrect. And it was sort of announced and it was a sticky moment, but the information was still valid. We still have sold 1 million licenses. It's just what they asked for was not what they really wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that often. I see, give me this information. And the analytics team gives them that information, and then they go do something with it, and then it fails, and they come back to the analytics team. The analytics team says, well, you didn't ask me for that. You asked me for X and I gave you X, but you really wanted Y. So another thing that we work on is helping align the intake process so we understand how information is being used to make decisions and aligning everybody.
That makes total sense, especially because I find that many times the investment into analytics, the investment into those that actually can understand and thoughtfully manipulate data, right? And review it and have good data integrity is often one of the first departments cut or not invested in. And that's really, really challenging when folks are trying to make decisions that are based, in factual kind of data points when they've spent absolutely no time building that up and don't have a framework.
Mm-hmm. I've had a CEO ask me in a meeting, do we even need a data warehouse?
Oof.
That was my response. Exactly. And not understanding how to use your data. If you're thinking about cutting analytics and cutting your data, your data systems, I would ask, do you understand how this is fueling the decisions being made in your company? And if it's not being used, why? A lot of people aren't using the information because they can't trust it. They aren't sure how to get to it. They think that it's being manipulated. And so we need to really look at that entire ecosystem and make sure that the data is trustworthy, it's confident, it's relevant, it's timely, and it can fuel information and insights. Data is not information, and information is not action. So I
Mm-hmm.
work with making sure that when we're giving those reports and those dashboards to our leaders, they are actionable, not just interesting.
Or they're not just, sometimes I've seen people splice data in a way that then they share with customers to either, get a different contract or just to say, hey, continue to work with us and be a sticky customer. And it tells such many times the wrong story or an inaccurate story. And it's often because I think most people don't have a great understanding of how to use this. So I'm so glad that you're being so helpful and kind of moving this forward. That's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. It's such a passion of mine to be in the data fields and the analytics fields and to help people understand what is the information telling you and what's the strongest story you can tell with it. What's the best decision you can make with it.
And that's a perfect kind of segue into my next question, which is, what are a few tangible actions that businesses can take to make their, 2026 more aligned and more cohesive?
Yeah, that's a great question. It starts with strategy. The C-suite, your executives, they really are steering the boat. They're saying, that's our course, this is our strategy, we're going to go there. How do we get there? And finding the people that are closest to the work to be able to start making those decisions. Um, Something that I do see quite often or hear quite often is, well, we don't have the authority to make the decision because our CEO, CIO, CTO, VP makes those decisions, and then they're handed down to us. And I think something that I would really love to have everybody change going into 2026 is stop focusing on being right, start focusing on getting it right. Be part of the getting it right and let go of that attachment to needing to be right or needing to be the one to have the answer. I'll look for the people closest to the work, look for the people that have capacity. Question, are we giving this decision or this initiative to somebody that had something similar in the past and we're just defaulting, but we actually have this other person now that can do it and in a different way, different capacity, different skills, different insights. And I would say, call me. I would love to come in and help make sure that strategy is tied to decisions, is tied to initiatives.
No, it's so needed, especially because I've been on the receiving end where there are folks, whether I'm advising or, when I was in corporate, there are folks at that C-suite level that go like, well, regardless of the information and data and strategy, I feel this way and we're going to do this. And that's really, really challenging. And so how do you kind of work with those more combative or those more challenging stakeholders to get them on board with this framework?
I am so glad you asked that. I'm launching Decision Forensics as a platform. And in the past, I've been sort of platform technology agnostic. And what I've seen is that there's no one tool that does this. And so I've built out this tool called Decision Forensics to help track strategy and the decisions we make and being able to track how much of it was, like I said, evidentiary, who made the decision, what was the outcome, what are we doing? Because decisions have to be defensible. Your stakeholders need to understand your shareholders, stakeholders, your C-suite, your employees, the community you live in. It's all important to be able to defend your decisions in this day and age. And if you don't have a system to manage your decision-making process, you can't defend why I made the decision I made. And so it's a sticky point with egos and a sticky point with CEOs. And to be fair, the CEOs, the way they've been doing things got them to where they are. But without a system to understand how decisions are being made, you have no idea which decisions you have to get right and which decisions are more risk tolerant. You could let somebody more junior make the decision and learn. We're going to end up in a couple of years here with nobody to step into the leading seat because they've never been given the experience or the opportunity to gain the experience, especially with AI taking over so many jobs.
And yeah, then that's a great kind of segue into how do you see decision making changing in 2026? So we want to kind of dive into that a little bit more because I think that's a perfect topic that I'm seeing more and more of. It's just like I'm seeing this not having a bench of junior developers, right? And being very worried about that because our senior developers will eventually retire and take all this great knowledge with them. And I know you're seeing it across industries as well.
I am. It's scary. It's scary to see how much people are relying on generative AI to help make decisions. And generative AI is learning from all of your conversations with it. It's learning and it's learning you and it's learning your style and it's learning your voice. It's also learning your bias. It's learning your error patterns. It's learning your blind spots. And it's continuing to sort of perpetuate that. And we are garbage in, garbage out. If you feed your AI system bad information, it will give you a bad prediction or a biased prediction or a biased answer. So, what I see happening is a lot of outsourcing our thinking to AI. The most important skill in the age of AI isn't AI, it's critical thinking. How can you look at the information you're getting from your AI systems or your reports and information, or from the person that you're talking to, and be able to think critically through whether that information is valid or not? So, what I see happening is a lot of people outsourcing their thinking to AI. I see a lot of junior developers and junior positions being replaced by AI, and we haven't figured out how to fix that. We haven't figured out how to balance bringing in those people, because how are they ever going to get entry level skills and entry level experience if it's now outsourced?
Mm. I often think about, at kind of the beginning of my career, APIs were really starting to be more in the conversation. They weren't cool yet, but they were kind of in flow. And then we saw this shift into data is everything, and now AI is everything. And I continue to think about it like a toolbox where like I don't have a hammer make decisions for me. I pull out a hammer when I need it, use it, and then put it back in the box. And I feel like so often there's that over reliance you were talking about because people are treating it like it is a peer, and that is not uh, what it is.
Yeah, you exactly. Well, I'm going to use it. You hit the nail on the head. You got your hammer and you hit the nail on the head. Treat your generative AI as the intern that you got from college. Go ahead and give it what you want it to do, but you need to think about it as this. This is a little baby employee that has no experience, has no way to human frame, has no idea how culture works. It can't figure out any of the stuff that a human can do, though. The framing, the emotional side, the interpretation of culture, the interpretation of information. Treat it like an intern. Double check it.
Mm-hmm. And don't just accept it. And then the worst thing I see is people just post whatever it does with the prompt included. And you're just like, yeah, exactly. And you're just like, this is not, I'm ready for this phase to pass. I'm ready for just, critical thinking to come back in a beautiful way. And I'm so grateful. Like I do have like my bachelor's I'm sorry, my master's in business, but I had history and international studies as my joint bachelor's degrees. And I'm so grateful that I had that kind of backbone to rely upon because those critical thinking skills have served me so well in seeing through the
Mm-hmm.
mess and the cluster that this is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's scary. And there's always been a technology disruptor. And now there's disruptors that are geopolitical and environmental and cultural and generational and technology. And there's disruptors everywhere. And as leaders, there's so much stuff coming in at a leader at any given point in time. Not having those critical thinking muscles and not flexing them and building them is definitely a risk.
Mm. And what's so great about the decision advantage system is that I feel like you're taking all of that into account, the cultural differences, right? The different bias people have in different ways. And that's so beautiful because having been a part of very large global corporations, that is often missed, right? Where we're not really cognizant of our bias, being in a Western hemisphere, what have you.
Mhm.
And so that's really lovely.
Yeah, thank you. When you're aware of these things, you can manage them. And I want to, with my systems and my tools, bring all of those biases, those blind spots, and those assumptions out of the periphery and bring them into the focus so that you can manage them. I mean, these things happen. You can't, we will never not have bias, blind spots or assumptions. We will always have those. But can you become more consciously aware of where those are and how those are influencing your decision making?
Mhm. And so to help us maybe that aren't a part of, large corporations and or just want to make better and better defensible decisions, please, you wrote a book, and you also have your ebook, so two books. Talk to
Mhm.
me, tell me everything about them. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, it's I'm a first time author, and I gave my editor my book, and I said, please edit this because I write like I talk, and so I've had to work really hard on learning to become a writer, and it's a vulnerable thing, right? You put your work out into the world, and you think, oh God, is anybody going to read it? Is people going to hate it? Like I don't know. So the book Think Deeper is the deeper critical thinking model that I sort of figured out how I handle analytics. It's always been something that I'm really good at, handling how I can get really good insights. And I thought, how can I apply that to a personal trauma moment that I was sort of having in my life, a little crisis? And it became deeper. And deeper stands for define, explore, examine, pattern, empower, and release. And it's a systematic way that you can think through defining what it is you're trying to solve, explore all of the possibilities, explore all of the different data sets you can bring in, explore all the different opinions you can bring in. It helps you start to think about where there's bias and missing information. What is it you don't know that you don't know? Examine is where you start to look through all of this information through a lens of more evidentiary. Is this valid? Is it right? Can I get more information? Pattern looks for causation and correlations. It looks for things that could be happening. It looks for repeated cycles. And that's where a lot of the magic happens in that layer where now we empower. The next E, the third E in the word deeper is empower. We're going to take a small aligned action or a large action in some cases, but it gets you out of the analysis paralysis or the decision paralysis of, I can't move because I don't have perfect information. What could you do? And then releasing and retrospecting is that process of going back through and seeing, if this is happening, how can I find that signal? So it might seem a little bit abstract or theoretical, but in the book, and it's an ebook, it's a short read, I give 3 examples of how you can take deeper and take it through situations. Like an analytical situation, the example I give is a sales team sees sales is down. Why? The leadership example is an initiative is stalled. Why? And the personal example is somebody is staying in a situation longer than they should. And they know that they're staying in a situation longer than they should. It could be a job, a relationship, partnership. But how do you use deeper to really align yourself and the personal choices that you're making and being aware of those blind spots and assumptions? So
This is
that's
so
one.
good.
And then that leads into, if you're a good critical thinker and you're thinking of all of these things and you're learning how to use your information, you're learning how to use your data, then as you're making decisions, you're tracking it so you know that sweet spot. Strategy might need more data, and product might need more data, and marketing might need more instinct and more guts. But how do you know unless you track it?
I think this is so helpful, not only for those at leadership at very large companies, but as a solo founder, an entrepreneur, I am making so many decisions every day and I have decision fatigue. And to defend my own decisions and know my own blind spots is a nightmare. And so I'm so excited for this to really build this into my own life even more because
Aw.
it's going to be so helpful. Yeah, no.
That's very sweet. Same thing. I've been tracking my decisions, and in the last year of my solopreneur work, I've made 35 big decisions, and I've realized it really helps me see. In the moment, you don't know it, but when you kind of take a step back and you look at it, like, wow, either I'm misaligned on my strategy, I'm misaligned on my decision making. As a new business, of course, you're making lots of decisions because you're pivoting. But how do you know if your pivots are the right pivots or the right time of that pivot? So it's been helpful for me to use my own system to see what is it that I'm doing and how can I be better.
I love that. Especially when you think about the trade-offs of decisions, right? And tracking not only, okay, we made this decision, whether or not it was as close to the right decision as we could get, it was helpful, it got us closer to our goal. It's like the trade-off of capacity, our mental health, because all of those matter as well. And that's so important to kind of take into
And
account.
exactly. And sometimes things are cyclical. So a year goes by before the situation comes back up, and then you make the same mistake. And then somebody goes, you know what? Actually, I think the same thing happened last year. And you go look and you're looking your email archive and you're like, oh, you're right. We did do the same thing last year. And then you just continue to repeat the history because you're not aware of it. You don't have a system that brings it up and surfaces that information quickly where you can go, we're not going to make that decision again.
Mm-hmm.
Forget after a year. I mean, sometimes we come in on Monday mornings and we're like, that conversation was Friday and I've slept 2 nights. I don't remember.
Yeah, and a very like personal share because I think it's important for those, that maybe don't have their own business but just want personal, better decision making. I found myself in a cycle where I was looking at dance studios locally again, and I've been traveling monthly to New York City to take classes with the best of the best, and I was like, I really miss having a home studio when I'm here, and I just found that, not to speak. I found that my needs weren't met at the places that are here locally. And so when I went through and I spent like 40 minutes researching, and then at the end I was like, I don't feel better about this. And so, but sometimes you're not able to catch yourself and you invest that time, that energy and whatever it is in your personal life. And so it's so lovely to be like, oh, let me step out of myself, use
Yeah.
a framework that makes sense, use a system. Apologies, I keep calling it a framework. I hope that's okay. Like in my head, that's what I think about.
It's going to evolve, right? And
Yeah.
it really is there to help slow things down just enough for you to catch some things that you
Yeah.
might be missing. We move so fast, and your brain predicts things before you make the decision. And in the book, I talk a little bit about that, but deeper just slows things down just enough to give you a chance to catch what you've been missing.
Mhm. That's so beautiful. As we kind of move towards the end of the show, I love stories of transformation. So I would love to hear kind of your favorite client success story or any story that you would feel called to share that just really kind of that you're so proud of that highlights that transformation that you offer.
Yeah, so I worked with a telecommunications company, and we had been, before I joined, they had been looking for insights that call centers were doing based on listening to the calls. And you can only listen to a few calls at a time. Like a human can only listen to, however many calls in a day to understand what's happening. And decisions were being made from a very, very small sample set. So they're coming in with, say, 1 million calls a month, and they're only able to listen to in a day 8. And so they listen to maybe 40 hours in a week, and then they write their reports that were informing decisions based on strategy tactics and retention tactics. And when I came in, I said, we're changing this. We're going to go after true transcript, large text mining, lots of data sets to build the right sample size for these decisions that were being made. And the team that I worked with, and the team was amazing at getting all of this stuff put together and surfacing the right insights to the sales and retention teams to be able to make the plays smarter, to be able to inform the AI systems that they were building for the next best action that a call center agent can see on their screen as they're talking to somebody. The next best action is coming in. This person needs this discount or this promotion or this troubleshooting. And the system that we put in place was allowing them to have the right data instead of just small cherry picked data sets.
I
And
love
it was driving a $63 million retention initiative.
Wow, that's real money. That's like that's
Oh, yeah, you're making
insane.
a decision of $63 million. You don't want to make it on this. You want to make sure you've got the
Yeah,
right data.
absolutely. No, that is huge. That is very cool.
That was a big transformation, a complete different change of skill sets. It was retooling, reskilling the entire team. But it was a lot of fun, and we had a lot of fun doing it.
And I also want to highlight so often in my career, I've worked with incredible folks in data analytics, and they're always so excited when anyone has a respect for data and also is excited to talk about it, right? And so I love the level of engagement that I've always had with those teams. And I think respecting data, the data integrity, and coming to it and saying, like, what are the possibilities here is a beautiful way to work with it.
Yeah, and data is beautiful. It really is.
I love this so much. Jen, where can the audience find you? Is there anything else upcoming you'd like to share?
Yeah, website is thedecisionadvantage.com. And the book will be available by the time people see this. It'll be on your Kindle and your Amazon. It's a $6.99 ebook, pretty consumable, easy to get to. And you can find me on the website or email me at jen@thedecisionadvantage.com.
Thank you so much for being here. I had the best time.
It's such a pleasure. And it's always so nice to see you and work with you, Tristen.
Same. Thank you so much for watching Musings and Modalities with me, your pragmatic shaman bestie. Tune in the second and fourth Thursdays of each month at 3:30 p.m. Pacific, 6:30 p.m. Eastern for more fabulous episodes. Thank you for listening.
Bye.
You've been listening to Musings and Modalities with me, Tristen, your pragmatic shaman bestie. For more powerful healing tools, join me every second and fourth Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. I cover a variety of topics to meet you wherever you are at on your spiritual journey. Learn techniques to work with pendulums, past life healing, astrology, and more. Please share the show and subscribe for more guidance from your pragmatic shaman bestie at musingsandmodalities.com.